Well, thank you very much. I'm honored to be here tonight, and I'm Gary Engel, and I'm just a soldier, so being retired, that in about $5 will get you a cup of coffee down at the Starbucks. But when I was asked to speak about this and to speak to you guys tonight, I said, I don't know why you're picking me particularly, but I can give you a little bit of an experience that I have. I did go to the United States Naval War College, and so I noticed that he had listed down there that I should talk about national security or foreign policy. And my master's degree is in national security and strategic studies from the United States Naval War College. There's 160 guys a year that's selected to go to the Naval War College, and I was one of them. That's Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and civilian. So, with a focus on the Middle East. So I spent a lot of time in the Middle East, not only as a soldier, but after I retired from the military, I became a vice president for a company called Engel, which was bought by General Dynamics. And I competed and won the business to run the supply depot for the Middle East for the Army. So I had 1,500 employees there that I managed, so I spent a lot of time there as a civilian as well. So I know a little bit about that area, and I studied it quite a bit. But I've been all over the world as a soldier, and that's a good thing to be a soldier. I never thought I'd make it a career, but I love hanging out with soldiers, and that's a good thing. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about those guys. I'm going to talk, so I got to thinking about what in the world do I talk to you guys about that you don't already know. But I said, let me talk to you about some things that's close to my heart, about foreign policy, some of the things that's going on in the political world today, and maybe give you a little bit that you can sift some of this stuff through to see about the reality of what somebody's talking to you about. First of all, I'm a Christian guy. I'm a family guy. I'm Engelheim Vineyards, keeps me busy and off the street. And I'm a retired vice president from General Dynamics Corporation, and I'm also a retired full-bird colonel of the United States Army. I was a transportation officer in the Army, did 28 years, and I loved being a soldier because I got to hang out with soldiers all those years. And so that's a pretty good thing. My bachelor's degree is from the University of South Alabama. I grew up in Foley, Alabama, down south, about as far south in Alabama as you can get. We call it UCLA, upper corner of lower Alabama. So I want to talk a little bit about my philosophies today. I'm going to talk a little bit about leadership and what leadership is, and what I think that we all need to recognize when we look at our political leaders, and some of the things that I think is important. I'm going to talk about success, what my view of success is, and once again it goes back to not being about me. I'm going to talk about the operational levels that our country needs to operate in, and we need to look at it and see if who's got the capability to operate at those different levels. Many of the politicians and stuff that you see today are quite frankly a disgrace because they don't understand the idea of strategic or operational or tactical operational levels. It's critical that you understand that because that drives the whole operation that we had to execute as soldiers. I personally have briefed. The last job I had, I was the chief operating officer for all logistical operations when we went to Baghdad. So you saw the big command center on TV. I ran that command center. We had 1,000 guys per shift. Everybody and their brother would come in and want to show up and get a briefing. So I had to have lunch, I'm sorry to tell you guys this, with Nancy Pelosi, Katie Couric, Peter Jennings, Dan Rather, Newt Gingrich, and everybody and their brothers would show up, senators, congressmen, and we'd have to shut down everything that was classified in there when they came in. And we're working 18 hours a day already, so we were kind of tired of that. And so they'd come in and we'd have to give them this dog and pony show. Most of which was BS, okay? But, it looked good, and most of them bought it, except for Newt Gingrich. He could figure it out pretty quick. Newt doesn't listen so well sometimes, so, anyway. And so, I'm going to try to relate some of these things to some of the challenges that we face today. And I can talk about tons of other things, but it's really immaterial because I think we need to look at things through that prism, and that's what I want to do in this little presentation that I'm doing. A little bit of historical perspective, where I'm coming from. I grew up as a Democrat. Sorry, I'm just saying. Until I was 13 years old, I grew up Democrat. I was in the solid South. Back then, you didn't think about voting Republican back then. I had an uncle that introduced the legislation in the state legislature to found the University of South Alabama, which is where I went to college, because he was my godfather, you know. But I became a Republican at 13 years old when I went to work on the farm, my grandpa's farm, and they told me I was going to make $48 a week, whether I needed it or not, right? 6 days a week, daylight, can't see no more. Sometimes later if you're harvest time. And so at the end of the first week, my uncle gives me a check, and I looked at the check and I said, something's wrong here. I said, I thought I was supposed to get $48 a week. That's only $42.60. He said, well, the government took that. I said, well, they didn't show up. And I had seen him out here a bit, man. And I was getting every bad detail that he could offer because I couldn't quit, you know. So I became a Republican at that time and realized that something was wrong with this tax and spend type program. And I grew up working on that farm. I went to college probably because I knew that if I stayed there, I could continue to work on that farm. But the girls were a lot prettier at college, so this was the logic that I used literally at that particular point in time. So I went through, and they had this program called ROTC. I went through this ROTC program. So yeah, I'm going to do a couple years in the Army. That'd be kind of cool. I'm kind of fascinated with that. I've always been kind of fascinated with tactics and whatnot. So I had orders to be an infantry officer until they found out I was colorblind. And I was a distinguished military graduate, so they always want to give you combat arms, but I'm colorblind. They said, you can't read a map. I said, I can read a map 60 miles an hour as opposed to 2.5 miles an hour when you're walking. So I became a transportation corps officer, which is another story, but trust me, I was very happy that I was a transportation officer. So, first job was as a second lieutenant in the 18th Airborne Corps in a medium truck petroleum unit. We hauled fuel. We were 72 hours to be anywhere in the world. And I got to hang out with the soldiers. And the soldiers were trying to do something special with their life. It wasn't about them. Some of them were getting away from something, trying to make something out of their lives. And I got to hang out with these guys. And you get to where you love these guys because they're special. I can tell you stories about them that's just amazing. I'll tell you one quick one. In Kuwait, same food, 14-day menu. Every 14 days, same thing. And they had these guys from Bangladesh or something in place cooking and cooking. So one soldier's telling me one day, he says, sir, I'm from Eastern Tennessee. He says, I grew up, my mother used to make biscuits every day. I get so sick of them, I couldn't stand it anymore. I said, yeah, man, it sucks. We talked about a couple of things, women and food. That was a basic conversation with soldiers, right? And he said, but you know, right now I give you $500 for one of them biscuits. But he was doing this thing and missing all those biscuits and stuff like that because he wanted to do something special with his life. And I got to hang out with those guys, so I wound up making it a career. One day led to another, and I loved hanging out with those guys, and I loved being a soldier. I didn't like being shot at and deployed so much, but that's okay. But I learned something about leadership. Leadership is something that a lot of people don't get. If I look at the deep state in Washington, D.C. today, they don't get it because they don't know what leadership is all about. I had a brigadier general I'm standing there one time next to, and I was a full bird colonel, and this guy was chief staff, 18th Airborne Corps. He was a good friend of mine. And this major was there. The major kept arguing with the general. The general about this damn tall, as hard as woodpecker lips. And so the major kept talking back. Well, I could see the general was in sin mode, so I learned, I'm smart enough to know to shut up. Listen to the general, do what he says, and that's it. But the major kept talking. Finally, the little general looked at him and said, let me tell you, son, all I need from you is something just like this. He said, what you need to do is move out and draw fire, son. You're not a target, you're a decoy. And with that, he turned around and walked out. And that's kind of the philosophy of my life. Because I'm not a target, I'm a decoy. I'm just go out there and do the best I can. I need to move out and draw fire, make something happen. That's in business, that's in whatever I'm doing. That's in the Republican Party. That's as a citizen of this country, this great country. And so I took an oath of office, and I said I need to move out and draw fire for this particular thing because I took this oath of office that says I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and bear true faith and allegiance to the same. Somebody needs to tell Lieutenant Colonel Vinman this. Amen. Okay? You know, If I had to write a sufficiency report, I would say this individual will be followed by the soldiers because they just want to see what he's going to do next. That is good, right? And so it's kind of a disgrace. But leadership is about being a servant leader. The greatest man that ever lived is Jesus Christ. Not once did he think about himself. He thought about the people around him. It's not about me. It's about how many people's lives I can touch with this short life that I've been given. So that when I lay down to die one day, or you do, whose life did you touch? What kind of difference did you make in our country? Yeah, it's a pain in the neck to get out and go to a Republican Party meeting or something, or support some of these politicians that's sometimes a little bit flaky. But we need to stand up for what the truth is because of our children and the difference that it can make. You see all these school shootings and stuff like that today, it's because we're losing values. I hear people say all the time, young people don't want to work because they're not taught to. Because they're focused on themselves. It's the me thing. So we've got to work to change that. I had numerous duty assignments, learning about leadership in each one of them. And I deal with that today. I had people from drug court, from Isaiah House and stuff like that come out and work with me. These guys have screwed up sometimes, but they can deal with the colonel and know that we can make a difference in their life because they're special and God doesn't make any junk. Like I said, I did some education in the military. I went to officer basic course, officer advanced course, command and general staff college, and Naval College, and a number of other schools, but logistics executive development course, lots of different classes. And all of these things gave me more and more insight in what's going on. Strategic level thought, and I'm going to talk about the difference between operational, tactical, and strategic, but my master's degree is strategic level thought and operating from that perspective. And that's what senior officers are taught to do. So you have to, they would give us 500 pages of stuff to read a day. It's only a lot of reading if you read it all. But I calculated it, and I sat in that class with the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Chief of Staff of the Army, Vice Chief of Staff of the Army. I had original Tuskegee Airmen sitting next to me in that class. What an amazing year that I got to spend in Newport, Rhode Island, doing that. When I'm talking about success, I look at President Trump. A lot of people say, tweets too much. He's got to. That's the only way he's got to communicate. Now, he may not be real, have a lot of tact, let's put it that way. But it's effective because they report it. Otherwise, the news media is not going to report what he's doing because it's a propaganda media. It's a disgrace. But he understands about what success looks like. Why is he serving? Why would that president go through the process to serve? And if you ask yourself, well, let's see, he doesn't need the fame. He doesn't need the fortune. He's not even taking his pay. going for charity, last I checked. He doesn't need the power. You look at a lot of these guys in Washington, D.C., they're upset because he's messing up their gravy train deal. Joe Biden, selling our country out for $1.5 billion to China while they're ruining our country. But no, he didn't serve for those reasons. He's not serving for those reasons. He got fed up. He got sick and tired of being sick and tired of the politicians screwing our country. He has a love for the country, not for the government. I didn't serve for the government. I served for the country, for the people out there, for my children and grandchildren, your children and grandchildren, and for the soldiers that stood there with me. Lots of times it sucked when we were deployed. I had so much soldier shot in my sedan, and they were apologizing to me, sir, we're sorry we got blood all over your car. And then I'm not there to serve that deep state. They're there to be served and not to serve. So we need to root that out, and that's what Trump's doing because he got fed up with it. And I can understand that. Our education system is failing us. We need to put competition into our education system. the Victory Center down here, this Christian school, give some alternative. Why are we denying the children that can't afford it, parents, the opportunity to send their kids to a different school, an alternative school, so they can get a decent education instead of some propaganda? Most of the teachers really want to do a good job, but their hands are tied with the bureaucratic red tape that we see today. Now, let's look at strategic policy for a minute. Foreign policy. I want to talk about foreign policy. If you look at foreign policy, and I can talk about just about any area you want to do, but I've spent a lot of time in the Middle East, and I've looked at, and I know a lot of the Iraqis, the Kuwaitis, and stuff very well. I've dealt with them. They had subcontractors with me when I was with General Dynamics. I was over there as a civilian, downtown with them. Okay, so, but when I look at the strategic policy, there's 3 levels of operational policy. There's tactical. If I'm a soldier and I'm in a tactical situation, I got this hill to take, I'm going to attack it in a tactical manner. Understanding that it's part of an operational approach for the area, that strategic area of operations. So we were attacking Iraq, well, that's part of an operational plan. That's okay. But the strategic level plan is what the President of the United States and what the leadership in Washington, D.C. should be executing. Understanding the difference is pretty critical. You don't need to be a congressman trying to execute at the operational level and telling soldiers when to engage or how many times somebody's got to shoot at you before you can engage. It's kind of foolishness. It gets people killed. And all these soldiers got families at home, children, wife, husband, whatever the case may be. One of the reasons I served for 28 years is because if I taught those soldiers, just one soldier, how to do something right during his entire career and not get killed because he did something stupid. If he or she came home and some children didn't have to grow up without a parent, then my entire career was worth it. It was something greater than me. It was success, something outside of myself. Leaders have vision. That's our responsibility as leaders. In my business, I have to develop a vision for where the business is going. I don't have to go down there and tell them how to sell each glass of wine or every little detail how to grow each grape. I've got competent people that can do that. I turn them loose and let them go. But my job is to establish a clearly articulated vision. Same thing with the President of the United States. He does. Look what he said he's going to do. How many presidents in your life have you seen that done what they said they're going to do and continues to fight for it every day in spite of the most tremendous odds I've ever seen a president have to deal with? When you go in from a national foreign policy perspective, if I'm going into Iraq, what do I need to do? What is the first thing I need to do before I decide to go into Afghanistan, into Vietnam? Pick one. What does success look like? I have to articulate that and clearly define what success looks like. So if I'm standing on a ship that says mission complete, it is. And what am I going to accomplish for the strategic interest of the United States? I don't care about, let me tell you something. If you look after the Ottoman Empire in the Middle East, after World War I, the Brits redesigned the lines of the countries there. They did it for a reason. A lot of people say they were stupid in the way they did it. No, they weren't. They were very smart. Look at Iraq, for example. Up in the north, you got the Kurds. You got the Sunnis, the Shiites. They all hate each other. No one can rise to be the regional hegemon. No more Ottoman Empire can arise. They're too busy fighting amongst each other. If you look, if I'm over there and I say to the Arabs over there, this Persian Gulf's really nice. It's not the Persian Gulf, so it's the Sea of Arabia, because they hate the Persians who are the Iranians. So now that we're backing out of that, and we're smart getting out of Syria, because what happened then? When we left, we weren't the big bad guys anymore, so they started fighting amongst themselves again. You know, by the way, Russia got tied up in it too. That's not nearly as stupid as they tried to make him out. So when you look at what's going on with foreign policy, Trump's sitting there saying, what am I doing in there? Why am I spending trillions of dollars and losing all sorts of lives in there for that reason? So, I'm getting long, so I apologize about that. But in summary, what is success? What do things look like that when I lay down to die one day and I say, you know, I did the best I could? I'm a Christian guy, and remember I said that number one. So how can I best serve my Lord? Because he served me. A service above myself. It's not about me. It's about people we touch. Love one another. Love's a powerful thing. Matter of fact, God is love. There's nothing more powerful. And then freedom. We're blessed to live in the greatest country in the world. We can't have socialism or something like that that has never worked anywhere. Look at Venezuela. If you want to be like that, let's go socialism. Or Soviet Union, pick one. So we have an opportunity as part of the Republican Party. Quite frankly, I'm probably more libertarian than I am Republican, except on foreign policy. But we have to look at everything that we see in the news media and understand what's going on and understand how we can serve in some small way that God gives us the ability to do that. Remember, I really don't know what I'm doing in anything, but I can listen and see opportunities that God presents me all the time. That's what we all need to do. Though, as they say in the Army, move out and draw fire, son. You're not a target, you're a decoy. I'd be glad to answer any questions that anybody may have about that, any experiences. You don't have to do it now, you can do it afterwards. Some people might be shy, but, and I don't want to take too much of your time. But,
did you ever have any congressmen or senators that asked you some really intelligent questions about why we're there and are we going to be able to, because they never really defined the mission.
You're exactly right, and I was not very impressed with the people that we had to brief. Quite frankly, from my perspective, I didn't see the value of the attack that we were doing. I thought that that Saddam Hussein, as big a jerk as he was a counterbalance to the Iranians. And you've seen that kind of get out of balance, right?
They said that about Gaddafi too.
There's a number of things, and look, as big a jerks as they were, you can't think about the Middle East in American mentality. You have to get in their headspace and time it. In the United States, you're an American first, and then you live in Georgia. Then you might live in LJ, and you might be, Southern Baptist, or whatever the case may be. It's reverse there. First is your family. Next is your clan, or maybe you're Sunni or Shiite. And next is your province where you live. Then you might be living in the country called Iraq, but you could care less about Iraq because you're not that. You're that family and under that warlord. It's completely 180 degrees opposite of the way that we look at things, so you have to look at it from that perspective, if that helps. When you look at that and how they operate over there, because that's kind of, I'm a Kurd. I'm not a Turk. I hate the Turks. I had class one time, and I had a Turkish officer and a Greek officer, and they hate each other. And them boys had to sit on the other side of the classroom from each other. And I was the president of the class, and I said, I didn't put up none of this. I just happened to be the senior officer in there at that time. But, it's a different mindset. I was in Germany one time with another captain from Chicago. We go to eat in a restaurant, and we're hungry. I sit down, he goes in the bathroom, and I'm looking at the menu, he comes back out and said, we gotta leave. I said, what the hell are we gonna leave for? We haven't even eaten yet. He said, well, these people are Serbs. I'm like, what do you mean? He said, I'm Croat. He's an American Army officer out of Chicago. How he knew they were Serbs is beyond me. But it goes that deep, that hatred for one another. Because if you look back in World War II, the Croats were allied with the Nazis, brutalized the Serbs. You can go on and on and on. But this goes back centuries. We're not going to go in there as Americans and change that. When I say, why did we go into Iraq? are we gonna get the Kurds and the Sunnis and the Shiites to love one another? Yeah. I was there when we got Jessica Lynch out. I stood at the ancient city of Ur, where Abraham's from. I was also one of the first Americans to go up on the Tower of Babel there when we went into Iraq. So, pretty interesting places, but I can guarantee it's there. And I'm standing on top of the Tower of Babel, third day of the attack, and I see the tanks and stuff going through the desert. We had to put security out, but I wanted to see it. So, and we were setting up a log base right there. By the way, think of foreign policy. Oil food program going on. We captured about 152 bunkers right there, ammo bunkers, loaded top to bottom with brand new weapon systems, date stamped 1999 and later during the oil food program from France. And you wonder why the French didn't want us to go in.
Yeah, I understand.
So, yeah, well, thank y'all very much. And any other questions? I'll be around afterwards, and I hope I gave you a little bit different perspective on things.
We appreciate it.